Welcome to Dogs Info. Here is a harsh truth that might sting your dog. Might not actually like you as much as you think they do. The subtle signs of their deep discomfort are constantly woven into your daily interactions. Yet most loving owners completely misread them or miss them entirely. Today, we are breaking down the critical warning signs that your dog is stressed, overwhelmed, or emotionally disconnected from you. This is not because you are a bad owner, but because dogs speak a silent complex language we were never taught to translate. The vast gap between what they are saying and what we are projecting can silently erode your bond over time. At the end of this video, I have a special gift for those of you who want to know exactly what kind of dog owner you truly are. I will give you a way to find out exactly which category you fall into, so make sure you watch until the very end. Let's decode their true feelings, starting with a behavior almost everyone gets dangerously wrong. Number 1, the deceptive lick. Licking is arguably one of the most consistently misinterpreted behaviors in the entire canine world. And the misunderstanding almost always flows in one very specific human-centric direction. Almost everyone universally assumes that a dog licking your hand or face is a pure expression of love and affection. Sometimes, that is absolutely true. But often, and this is the heartbreaking reality that shocks most pet parents, licking is an acute stress response, a highly submissive gesture, or a desperate appeasement signal. The dog is engaging in this behavior because they feel incredibly uncertain, pressured, or uncomfortable in the current dynamic. The secret to telling the difference does not lie in the act of licking itself, but rather in the entire physical context surrounding it. A dog who licks you from a place of genuine relaxed affection will have a very loose, wiggly body, soft, almond-shaped eyes, and will move toward you freely without hesitation. Conversely, a dog who is licking from a place of deep anxiety or forced submission presents a drastically different picture. Look for a stiffened or lowered body posture, a tightly tucked tail, ears pinned flat against the skull, and a distinct avoidance of direct eye contact. They might dart in, lick your hand briefly, and quickly pull away. Or they might lick you repeatedly in a highly frantic, compulsive manner rather than a relaxed one. What is actually happening in these uncomfortable scenarios is that the dog is broadcasting appeasement. In complex canine social dynamics, licking the face or hands of a perceived dominant individual is a biological way of signaling, "I am absolutely not a threat to you. Please do not hurt me or be aggressive toward me." When your dog does this with you, it does not automatically mean they live in total terror of you, but it definitely means that something in your energy, your posture, or the immediate environment is producing intense social pressure. If your dog routinely licks you while holding their body entirely tense, you must pay attention. The immediate fix is to simply back off. Give them physical space. Allow them to approach you entirely on their own terms, and drastically reduce the overwhelming intensity of your greetings. Licking is a subtle miscommunication, but what happens when the communication stops entirely? Let's look at the heartbreaking reality of the moment you walk through the front door. Number 2, the cold shoulder welcome. This specific sign is incredibly uncomfortable for many owners to confront because it requires you to strip away your ego and honestly observe your dog's authentic reaction when you come home. You must look at what is actually happening, not what you desperately hope you are seeing. A dog who is deeply securely bonded to you and feels completely safe in your presence will always exhibit a noticeable shift in demeanor when you return from an absence. It absolutely does not have to be an overwhelming dramatic display. Not every dog is a frantic jumper, a loud barker, or a dizzy spinner. However, there will be something tangible, a rhythmic tail thump against the floor, a body that physically orients in your direction, or a warm focused gaze. The overall energy in the room visibly brightens. They know you have arrived and they actively want you to know that they are happy about it. On the other hand, a dog who treats your highly anticipated return as a total non-event is sending a loud message. If they stay lying flat on the rug, refuse to alter their behavior. When you walk into the room, deliberately avoid making eye contact, or physically get up and walk away from you, they are communicating severe emotional distance. This is not casual indifference. This is an actual measurable psychological disconnection from you as their primary caregiver. This tragic dynamic can develop for a multitude of complex reasons. It could stem from a long history of unpredictable, erratic handling. It might be a pattern of interactions where the dog has slowly learned to associate your presence with stress, overwhelming noise, or discomfort. It often occurs in environments where their fundamental physical, social, or cognitive needs are consistently being ignored. In some sad cases, it reflects a foundational bond that was simply never established, which is quite common in rescue dogs adopted as adults from highly traumatic backgrounds. The path back from this cold shoulder is never to demand more engagement or force them to greet you. Instead, you must painstakingly rebuild their emotional associations one positive, low-pressure interaction at a time. An apathetic greeting hurts your feelings, but the next warning sign actually fights against millions of years of hardcore canine biology. Number 3, the food rejection red flag. A dog who suddenly and deliberately refuses to take a piece of food directly from your hand is broadcasting a massive, glaring red flag, and it almost never has anything to do with the actual quality of the treat. Dogs are driven by the desire for food at an incredibly deep, fundamental biological level. It is hardwired directly into their DNA for basic survival. When that powerful internal motivation is entirely overridden, when the immediate situation or the specific person offering the food produces enough paralyzing stress to shut down their survival instincts, something is catastrophically wrong with the relationship dynamic. If your dog happily accepts treats from your spouse, your children, or even house guests, but stubbornly refuses to take them from you, that specificity is vital diagnostic data. It proves that the issue is not a lack of appetite or an underlying medical problem. It means that something about your specific physical presence is triggering a negative emotional state so intense that it overrides their biological drive to eat. This devastating association often happens very gradually. A dog who was routinely handled roughly during obedience training, a dog who was frequently punished and now views their owner as highly unpredictable, or a dog who has been repeatedly forced into frightening situations, will learn to connect the deep fear directly with the person holding the leash. This food refusal is not a conscious choice or an act of stubborn rebellion. It is their nervous system's honest involuntary response to a perceived threat signal. The only way to combat this is through extreme patience. Stop demanding they take it from your fingers. Place the high-value food on the floor near them and walk away. Remove all demands and pressure from your presence until their emotional block begins to slowly melt away. While refusing a treat is an obvious sign of distress, our next warning sign is a biological signal that humans misinterpret every single day, often with disastrous physical results. Number 4. The treacherous tail wag. If you ask the average person on the street to read canine body language, they will confidently tell you that a wagging tail equals a happy, friendly dog. This is arguably one of the most persistent, widespread, and physically dangerous oversimplifications in the entire history of dog behavior. The tail absolutely communicates emotion, but exactly what it is saying depends entirely on the speed of the movement, the rigidity of the base, the height of the carriage, and most importantly, what the rest of the dog's body is doing at that exact same second. A high, incredibly fast, stiffly vibrating wag, particularly one where the tail is held rigidly above the horizontal level of the spine, is absolutely not a relaxed, welcoming greeting. It is a blazing billboard of high physiological arousal that is frequently associated with deep tension, territorial dominance, or imminent aggression. Conversely, a very low, slow, sweeping wag, especially when combined with a body that is curved and crouching toward the floor, is a textbook display of fear, appeasement, and profound anxiety. One of the clearest, most terrifying mixed signals a dog can produce is a tail that is wagging furiously while the rest of their muscular body remains entirely frozen and tense. The tail is claiming one emotion, but the body is screaming another. And in the canine world, the overall body tension is always the more reliable truth-teller. The critical human mistake is looking at the tail in total isolation. When evaluating your dog's emotional reality, the tail is merely one single data point in a complex biological system. A dog who is wagging their tail, but possesses hard, unblinking eyes, a forward-leaning stance, and pinned ears is absolutely not happy to you. They are over-aroused and highly uncomfortable. Reading their body language from afar is difficult enough, but how they react when you physically close the gap tells an even deeper, more intimate story about consent. Number 5. The flinch and retreat. Physical touch is the primary overarching way that human beings attempt to express love and affection for their pets. However, it is also the primary way that we constantly, unapologetically impose our own emotional needs onto animals who have absolutely not consented to the interaction, and who may be actively screaming that they want to be left alone. When a dog actively pulls their head away from your reaching hand, leans their torso backward, freezes rigidly under your palm, or quickly turns their face away when you lean in for a kiss, these are not subtle, mysterious signals. These are the dog's most polite, readily available tools for saying, "Please, not right now," or "I do not want you in my space." The subtle stress signals that immediately accompany this unwanted human handling are highly specific and scientifically recognizable. You might notice your dog letting out a wide yawn when they are clearly not tired, quickly licking their lips when there is no food around, heavily squinting their eyes, or suddenly scratching their neck. In behavioral science, these are officially known as calming signals. They are your dog's desperate, polite attempt to naturally diffuse the tension in the room by outwardly displaying their own internal discomfort. When humans arrogantly override these polite signals, continuing to aggressively pet, tightly hug, or physically restrain a dog who is begging them to stop, the dog learns a very dangerous lesson. They learn that their polite whispers do not work. And when quiet communication completely fails, the only remaining tools in their biological toolbox are incredibly dramatic ones: the low growl, the air snap, and eventually the full contact bite. These aggressive behaviors never truly come out of nowhere. They are the final result of a long, tragic history of quieter boundaries being repeatedly violated. The absolute best thing you can do when your dog flinches or pulls away is to just stop. Give them their bodily autonomy. When we continually ignore those quiet whispers for personal space, the dog is forced to turn up the volume. And that leads to a sound that strikes fear into most owners, even though it is actually a blessing. Number 6. The misunderstood growl. This is going to sound incredibly counterintuitive to everything you have ever been taught. But a growl is an absolute gift. It is one of the most vital foundational concepts to understand regarding canine communication. A dog who emits a low rumbling growl when you approach them while they are chewing a bone, resting on their bed, or being physically handled is doing you the enormous gracious favor of warning you before the situation turns violent. They have not failed as a companion, and they are not being inherently evil. They are simply communicating using the very best tools evolution gave them that you have breached their personal safety bubble in a way that feels intensely threatening. The most catastrophically wrong, dangerous response to a growling dog is to punish them for it. A dog who is harshly scolded, alpha-rolled, or physically struck for growling does not magically stop feeling the intense fear or discomfort that caused the growl in the first place. They simply learn to stop warning you about it. A dog who has been aggressively taught that growling only produces human violence will completely skip the auditory warning next time and escalate directly to a severe bite. You have literally trained them to attack without warning because you proved that their intermediate communication step only makes their life worse. If your dog is frequently growling at you, it is vital diagnostic data. It proves they do not feel safe with you in those specific contexts. You must address the root emotional cause using a certified force-free behaviorist, manage their environment, and above all else, never punish the growl. Keep their early warning system fully intact. A growl is a highly active loud response to your presence. But what does it mean when your dog completely and utterly tunes out the sound of their own identity? Number 7. The deaf ear syndrome. A dog who consistently and blatantly fails to look at you or respond when you call their name is almost always casually labeled by their owner as being stubborn or spiteful. However, true stubbornness is almost never what is actually occurring inside the dog's brain. What is actually happening usually falls into one of 3 distinct, highly concerning categories, and none of them involve deliberate defiance. The first major possibility is that their name has been effectively poisoned through classical conditioning. If a dog's name is most frequently used right before they are harshly scolded, dragged into the bathtub, violently restrained for nail trims, or forced into a crate, they hate The word itself transforms from a joyful invitation into a terrifying warning siren. The dog hears their name and their nervous system instantly braces for a negative outcome. Ignoring you is a protective form of avoidance, not stubbornness. The second, more heartbreaking possibility is total emotional withdrawal. A dog who lives in a state of chronic stress, severe understimulation, or in an environment where their needs are wildly unmet, will gradually completely disengage from the social world. They are not refusing to hear you. They simply no longer possess the emotional bandwidth to interact with you in a meaningful way. They have effectively given up. The third option is sheer delusion. If you casually repeat your dog's name 70 times a day as background noise without ever offering a consistent valuable consequence or reward, the word completely loses its signal value. It becomes the equivalent of the hum of a refrigerator. To fix this, you must stop using their name casually and aggressively rebuild a highly positive association from the ground up using massive rewards. Tuning you out is a passive quiet coping mechanism. But sometimes their underlying anxiety manifests in highly active, incredibly destructive ways when you dare to leave them behind. Number 8. The targeted destruction trap. There is a massively pervasive, entirely false belief among pet owners that when a dog destroys household items in their owner's absence, they are doing it out of pure calculated spite. You will hear people say, "He chewed up my favorite shoes because he was mad that I went to work." This is a complete biological impossibility. Dogs simply do not possess the complex forward-thinking cognitive architecture required for premeditated revenge. What they do possess is a powerful, often crippling emotional response to separation anxiety, combined with a natural instinct to actively seek out objects that carry the heavy scent of the person they are panicking over. When your dog shreds your leather work shoes, pulls your unwashed laundry out of the hamper, or absolutely destroys the specific sofa cushion you always sit on, they are not punishing you for leaving the house. They are desperately trying to cope with an overwhelming panic attack. This destructive behavior is driven by the exact same terrifying internal anxiety that causes a dog to blindly pace the hallways, hyperventilate, and drool when left entirely alone. Your personal belongings carry a heavy, comforting concentration of your unique scent. By actively chewing and destroying that scent-soaked object, the dog's terrified body is frantically attempting to self-soothe and simulate physical contact with the person who has vanished. Addressing the physical destruction by hiding your shoes completely fails to address the burning anxiety driving it. You must systematically build their emotional capacity to tolerate being alone. While tearing up your favorite shoes is a very loud, obvious cry for help, there is a much quieter, highly subtle vocalization that dogs use when they feel totally defeated by your actions. Number 9. The heavy sigh of resignation. We all love the sound of a dog letting out a long, soft, fluttering sigh as they curl up in front of the fireplace and drift off to sleep. That specific sigh is a beautiful indicator of total relaxation and contentment. However, there is a drastically different type of sigh that owners frequently ignore. And it is the heavy sigh of deep emotional resignation. If you are trying to interact with your dog, perhaps you are forcing them into a training session they hate, repeatedly moving them off the furniture or continuously invading their space for a photo, and they suddenly let out a sharp, heavy, forceful exhale through their nose, you need to freeze. Unlike the sleepy sigh, their physical body will remain rigidly stiff. Their head will likely be elevated and their eyes will remain wide open and alert. This specific forceful sigh is your dog verbally expressing intense frustration and emotional exhaustion. It translates perfectly to "I am incredibly uncomfortable with what you are doing to me, but I feel totally powerless to stop you, so I am just going to give up." It is the sound of an animal resigning themselves to an unpleasant experience because they know their boundaries are not being respected. If you hear this sharp exhale during an interaction, immediately take a step back. Recognize that you are pushing them way too far. Gracefully end the interaction on a positive low-stress note and give them the space they are silently begging for. A heavy sigh means they feel emotionally trapped, but if they feel physically trapped, you will witness the ultimate, most urgent visual warning sign a dog can ever produce. Number 10, the terrifying wail. If you have ever looked down at your dog and noticed them cutting their eyes sharply sideways at you, revealing a stark white half-moon shape of the sclera right at the edge of their iris, you have just witnessed what professional behaviorists ominously call the whale eye. If you have seen this look and casually dismissed it as your dog just being goofy or giving you a side eye, this is the single most critical sign you need to understand today. The whale eye is undeniably one of the clearest, most desperate, and highly urgent distress signals in the entire canine behavioral repertoire. It physically occurs when a dog is feeling completely cornered, physically trapped, and intensely unsafe. It is the anatomical result of a dog desperately wanting to turn their face away to avoid conflict while simultaneously feeling so threatened that they must keep their actual eyeballs locked directly onto the perceived threat, which in this case is you. This horrifying signal is most frequently observed when humans force dogs into tight hugs, when children blindly rush up and put their faces directly into a sleeping dog's face, or during any invasive handling where the dog feels their physical escape routes have been completely cut off. When you combine the visual of the whale eye with a stiffened statuesque body, a tightly closed mouth, and a terrifying stillness that mimics tolerance but is actually a psychological suppression, you are looking at the absolute final warning before a severe bite occurs. If you see the whale eye, stop whatever you are doing immediately, drop your hands, and slowly back away. A dog displaying this sign is pushed to their absolute breaking point. Here is the profound, unavoidable truth that all 10 of these warning signs are pointing directly toward dogs fundamentally lack the biological capacity to hide their true emotional states from their physical bodies. Every single one of these subtle signals is their nervous system frantically communicating in the only language evolution gave them. When we finally learn to truly read that language without selfishly projecting our human desires onto them, we become capable of building an infinitely deeper, safer bond. The only relationship worth having with a dog is one based on reality where they genuinely choose to be near you because you make them feel safe. If you recognized any of these silent cries for help in your own home today, the most uncomfortable question you must ask yourself is, how are you accidentally triggering them? The reality is your dog's behavior is a direct reflection of your handling style, and there are exactly 10 distinct types of dog owners. A few of these types build an unbreakable foundation of trust while others unknowingly push their dogs into chronic stress. Are you brave enough to face the truth and see exactly who you are in your dog's eyes? Scan this QR code or check the description below for the link. It is a completely free quiz and it only takes 2 minutes to finish. I would love to hear from you. Drop down into the comments and tell me your dog's name and let me know if you have ever noticed any of these subtle warning signs in your own house. We are all learning together. Thanks for watching, and like and subscribe, share please.